The NFL regular season is over. Welcome to First and Pod. Andrew Fillipponi, Patrick Peterson. We're going to break down all the Week 18 games and get you set for the playoffs. Thanks for finding us tonight. Jerod Mayo filling in for Spencer Ray behind the scenes. Subscribe, rate, review. That's how the podcast keeps getting bigger and better. Don't just listen, subscribe, and tell your friends to do the same thing. 2-minute warning of Lions and Vikings, and we said, screw it. Let's go on the air and talk about it, because this game went from 10-6 at the half to 21-3 in the second half, all Lions. So they clinched the number one seed. And now Minnesota's got to go back to LA, where they lost earlier in the year. Pat, who do you want to start with here? You want to do Detroit side or Minnesota side of this game first?
I'm gonna go. Let's go Detroit.
Okay.
I'm gonna start off with Detroit. Huge shout out to Aaron Glenn and his defensive staff. Being able to do the job that they have done in this game. We all thought this was going to be a high scoring affair. That was not that did not seem to be the case.
I thought Minnesota was going to win, so shame on me.
I mean, me and you went with Minnesota on winning this ball game, so shame on both of us. But what it did as well, it just went for the Detroit Lions. It showed me and it showed the world on the defensive side of the ball. If you're able to make Sam Darnold flustered, make him have happy feet, he becomes just an average quarterback. The roses are not they don't smell as sweet, when everything is going right. Because if you look at it as well, this is his first playoff atmosphere type game on the road. Now they're going to be on the road and going to traveling to the Rams here next Monday night. They had to go in Detroit to secure the number one seed and to win their division, and they just was not able to do it. He just went back to the Sam Darnold that we saw of old. And what Kevin is going to have to do, the head coach, Kevin O'Connor, I'm speaking of, is he's going to have to do a better job of making sure that he gets Sam in a rhythm early in the ball game. Because if you go back and watch this game as well, all of the routes that they was trying to complete was 10, 15 yards plus. And Detroit just continued to send pressure after pressure after pressure to really make Sam Darnold get his eyes down from his reads, force him to roll out of the pocket. And that, gave the Detroit Lions defensive line an opportunity to corral to him to force an ill-advised throw or a sack. So shout out to Aaron Glenn and the defense for doing an outstanding job in this game. Now clinching the number one seed, getting some much-needed rest with all those injuries that they have been dealing with. And let's see if they can make the run that they've been hoping for.
I'm going to start with Detroit and say that this sets them up now to get to the Super Bowl, winning this game, not just because they have home field, but the way they did it, to hold the Vikings to 9 points, to take Darnold and really make him human, especially in the red zone. And we'll continue to hit on what went wrong there. Jefferson had a quiet game. They couldn't run the ball. And so I did not think this defense was capable of doing that. So that's kudos to Aaron Glenn, who should be a head coach after this season. Both of their coordinators should get head coaching jobs when the season ends. If they don't, then something's wrong with the hiring process. That's my take on that. Aaron Glenn might end up being the Jets coach, Ben Johnson possibly in New England. I think both of those guys will be gone. Glenn deserves it with the performance they put on. They'll probably see Minnesota again in 2 weeks if Minnesota takes care of business and goes to LA. If not, then they play the Rams, and they beat Matthew Stafford in the playoffs last year, and they beat him in week 1 of this season in Detroit. So they're comfortable in that matchup, even though Stafford obviously has a history with them. And it avoids having to go to Philadelphia. So they don't have to go out there, Jared Goff, in the cold weather and 10-degree weather or something crazy like that, and having to win a game that they're unaccustomed to doing. So even with all their defensive injuries, I think that they're back in it with this game. Jahmyr Gibbs, you're not supposed to draft a running back in the first round. He was the MVP of this game, Pat, because I thought Jared Goff wanted to hold my beer moments with Sam Darnold. Oh, you're going to make bad throws in the red zone? Well, wait, I'll screw up the game too. And he immediately threw that arm punt interception on first down. He didn't have a first half.
Yeah.
But then he had a much better second half. So I'm with you on Detroit, man. I think this was their biggest game, biggest win of the year. And the contrast in that you had Dan Campbell who went for it on fourth downs again. It didn't always work, but it mostly worked in this game.
Yeah.
And then I thought in the second half, Pat, I thought Kevin O'Connell got scared because his fourth downs weren't working. They're red zone failures. And so when it was still a game, he elected to try a 52-yard field goal instead of going for it. And they missed it. And I thought at that point, Detroit came right down and scored, and that we could have started taping the podcast right then and there.
That's when I text you. I said, "Are you ready?"
Because that's what we give Dan Campbell credit for. He is who he is. He believes in his team. He doesn't waver for it. O'Connell got chicken in this game.
Yeah. The pressure in that game definitely mounted up into moments to where Kevin O'Connell did not want to go for the ball or screw it up bad enough to where the game got out of hand, which the game ended up getting out of hand anyway. But because initially, too, even starting off the game, I feel like he was going for it kind of out of character.
You try to match Campbell.
Exactly. Like at the same time, like we don't have to do that. Just still stay true to you. Like stay true to who you are. Like you don't have to go fourth down for fourth down. And I think as well, like you just said, that knowing that when you play the Detroit Lions, that you're going to get fourth down conversions or they're going to go for it on fourth downs 80% of the times, that put more pressure on the opposing offenses because they're like, we can't afford on missing out on the opportunity of an extra possession or continue to keep our drive going as well. So that it's a catch 50-50 what Dan Campbell has going on right now with the Detroit Lions, and is working in his favor so far. It didn't work last year in the NFC Championship, but this season, for the most part, his success rate is very high.
I agreed with what you said about how the pressure, I thought as the game wore on, I don't mean the pressure of the game. I mean the actual pressure that Detroit was sending at Darnold. I think it got to him. I mean, they left Robinson the corner on Jefferson one-on-one for most of the game, and they got away with it because of most of the blitzing and exotic pressure that they put on him. But I do think where this game was lost was Darnold just missing throws in the red zone.
He missed Addison wide open, man, on the first read. I can't remember what I believe that was right before halftime or after halftime, their first drive. He missed Addison wide open when he motioned him out wide.
Yeah.
He came back in. I was like, oh, you missed him early. Like, throw it right now. But like to your point, the pressure that got to him so early in the game, it had him rattled. His eyes, he wasn't focused. He wasn't the same Sam Darnold that we saw, throughout the first 16 weeks of the season. So like I said earlier, what the Detroit Lions did was they showed the world and showed the rest of the league and the Rams, if you pressure him early, get him off that first read and off his initial read, then you kind of cooking with grease because now we know he's not athletic to beat any of our defensive linemen outside of the pocket. And we saw today when he was to scramble, he completed none of his passes. So we have better odds on speeding him up versus letting him sit back in the pocket and letting him cook.
Worst, I think, fear realized for Minnesota fans. You played there. I think that those fans want to trust and have faith in their team so badly, but there's so many scars from big game losses that have accrued over time. I know Vikings fans, now they think they're effed. They think they have this great regular season. Now they think their season is going to blow up in their face again.
Yeah, I've been there, so I heard the rumblings before as well.
Let's get to the rest of the games here. We got a lot to touch on. Coaches got fired today. Other coaches are going to be back. Yep. One quarterback might have retired. Another wide receiver says he needs traded. So there's a lot to do. The Broncos just shellacked the Chiefs backups. There was no
even a match.
This game. Is the rest of the AFC happy that the Broncos are in and the Bengals are going to be watching the playoffs from their couches? You're already nodding yes for those who are listening.
100%. Just because what Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals offense and their defense, what the defense has been able to do in the last 2 weeks and what the offense have been doing pretty much all year long is quite frightening. especially for a Patrick Mahomes. I know he wasn't going to see him in the first round, but for Joe Burrow, for Josh Allen, I already pretty much are. If they had to go to Houston, I had them winning that game. Lamar Jackson, it was going to be a fight. Whoever that they played, it was going to be a dogfight because how hot and efficient that the offense have been throughout this season. But to the Denver Broncos, man, what a way to start off the game with a little trickery. Really just coming out of the gate, just saying like, this is our game. We're going to own it. We can care less who you have playing. We came in here with a mission, that's to win this ball game, and that they did. Also, shout out to Vance Joseph, man, for breaking the team sack record with 60-plus sacks. I don't even know what they finished with because they hit Carson Wentz so many times tonight. It was just it got to be ridiculous. And lastly, man, Bo Nix, he really showed his butt today, man. Like he really showed. I feel like he really grown up in the second half of this football season. Sean Payton has really went out and found his quarterback of the future, and the Denver Broncos right now are sitting really, really in a really good position because they're an offense right now that can move the ball up and down the field. They have a quarterback that's very, very efficient. Sometimes he can get ahead of himself, but he don't make those ironic, rookie mistakes passing the ball. You got a defense that can sack the quarterback. You got, defenders that can intercept the ball as well. So
you got the best corner in the NFL.
Exactly. So this can be a sneaky team that can make some noise, especially on the road. With this win today, continue to build confidence, continue to build a swagger within themselves. You never know, because if you go back and look at it as well, man, I remember a team by the name. I know he's not no Tom Brady, so I don't want everybody get me all confused. But if you go back and watch the team in 2021 when Tampa Bay went on the road and won it all, want those games. They beat Green Bay.
2020.
Yeah. So it has that kind of makeup, and Sean Payton, he's a guy who's won a lot of games, who's been to playoffs. He understands how to win these games, understand how to get his team geared up. So the Broncos is definitely going to be a team that I'm going to keep an eye out on throughout this playoff run.
They actually remind me, the record is not as good, but they remind me of the 04 Steelers in that with Ben's rookie year. Mm-hmm. Because the teams that have gone deep into playoffs with rookie quarterbacks, the Ravens with Flacco his rookie year, the Jets with Mark Sanchez, those teams, the defense and run game carried those quarterbacks. Yes. Nix has been better than that, just like Ben was better than that as a rookie. He threw 28 touchdown passes this year, Nix. Yeah. So I do think that they're a pretty balanced football team with what Peyton has been able to do with him. Sutton had a big year. Mims has come on. They don't have a running back. They do it by committee. Their offensive line has been great. But I do think the Chiefs' approach to this game was impacted by Cincinnati. I think if that was not something to take into account, if the Bengals, getting in with a Denver loss was not on the table, I think we might have seen Mahomes a little bit today. I'm not saying for the full game.
Right.
But I think their approach would have been more like some of the other teams that played starting quarterbacks or played starters and then got them out of the game, Pat. I think they're thrilled that Cincinnati's not in. And Denver, this is a house money season the rest of the way. They lose. Their fans are still going to be very excited about their future. So that, I guess, makes them dangerous because there's no pressure on them to win. Mm-hmm. But the Bills, Ravens, and Chiefs did not want to see the Bengals in the playoffs. No. So the Chiefs won by losing today is the bottom line.
100%. All right, we got the Saints, Bucks. Tampa Bay win their fourth division in a row. Thumbs up or thumbs down on how they did it?
So thumbs down on how they played today. They were down 10 at the half. They took the lead finally with 7 minutes left. I don't want to hear about resilience and all that nonsense. Edwards-Helaire was the Saints' leading runner today. I'd forgotten he was even on their team, to be honest with you. No Derek Carr, no Elvin Kamara, no Chris Olave, no Taysom Hill. Honey Badger's out with a concussion. And you're down 16-6, and you're down with 8 minutes to go in the game. They would have gotten because Atlanta ended up losing anyway, so they would have backdoored their way in either way. But I did not like at all the way they played today. And I have already, if we had taped this podcast 6 hours ago, I would have given you a much different opinion on the Mike Evans play, but I've come around to it. My initial reaction watching it live was, are you fucking kidding me? Sorry, I don't know if I can say that, but that was literally what I thought. Dude, if something bad happens, like a tip ball at the line of scrimmage or a bad snap or something, and the Saints get the ball back, Pat, it's like one of the most, I don't want to say selfish plays, but it's like the game's over and you're prioritizing an individual accomplishment over a team goal. But the reason why I've come around on it is just because you can tell how much it means to all of those players. It's like a galvanizing thing.
Yeah.
I watched the Steelers in a situation with Antonio Brown where they were trying to keep a meaningless streak going of 5 catches and 50 yards in every game. And they ran a late play against Jacksonville to keep that streak going. Like, that's dumb. This I understand because it's tying Jerry Rice for a record.
Yeah.
And he's been there his entire career. But dude, if that backfired, like, that's one of the wackiest plays in NFL history if something haywire off the rails happens on that play, Pat.
Yeah, that was man, that's crazy you say that. I was gonna give the OC a shout out. Liam Cohen. Yeah, I was gonna give him a shout out for making sure that Mike Evans got his 5 yards, man. I thought that was big time because I felt like they called a safe enough play.
It was safe. You're right about that.
I felt like they called a safe enough play to get Mike Evans the 5 yards. I can I can see it in that situation if they drop back like a 7-step drop back and they just launch the ball down the field. Now that's just bonehead. But with that play selection, because you still got Baker Mayfield, a guy who's mobile enough, who can, if the play is not there, he can just run it, slide and have the clock continue to run. So I felt like it was a safe play. I mean, you just almost just shot my whole comeback down, man. Because like I said, I was going to give Coach Cohen a shout out for making sure Mike Evans kept that streak going, because that is important to players, man, to be recognized as to be not only recognized but be mentioned to one of the league's greatest players to ever play the game. Like, that's big time, man. So again, man, shout out to Coach Bowles for green lighting it, because most coaches, I can remember going back to Justin Jefferson rookie year, and I can't remember what record that he had. I had just got a pick 6. We played the Chicago Bears. Neither one of us are going to the playoffs, so we have nothing to play for. We got the ball, and I think Justin needed maybe like 16 yards. I'll never forget. I walk up to Coach Zimmerman. I was like, "Yo, Justin. Coach Zim. Justin needs, however many yards he needs to break the record." It was more than enough time too. It was like 2 minutes or something. It's like, I don't give a fuck about a goddamn record.
Dude, I didn't know like where that story was ending, but I could have guessed that. I would have taken every dollar in my wallet.
And the way he looked at me with his glasses, like his glasses was like down like this here. I'm not worried about no goddamn record.
Well, the only other complaint I had about it initially was I do think it cheapens it when it happens outside the flow of a game. Like, we've all seen the viral clip of like Mark Gastineau wanting to break Brett Favre's neck because he gave Michael Strahan that sack to break that single season record. And so when a game's basically over and then you try to stat pad, I know I look at that a little bit differently. I'll tell you what, Mike Evans is lucky Marshawn Lattimore doesn't play for the Saints anymore, because he would have tried to take his friggin' head off on that play, because those guys don't like each other very much.
At the same time, Pony, it's not patent stats. There's still time on the clock. And the offensive coordinator can call whatever the hell he want to call. It's on the defense to stop it.
That's true.
So who's to say that if it's a minute? Like, I was a part of a game with Pete Carroll when we was getting our door. I think I told this story on the dang on podcast one time. We're getting our door smashed in, and here comes Matt Flynn, play action. like it's our job to stop the offense. So it's not patting the stats, in my opinion. So you just got to do a better job of stopping this. Plus, at the same time, the Saints knew what was going on. The Saints knew he had a record or something going on. So call something to make sure that he don't get it. Because, for me being a defensive player, like I just don't want.
What would they have done if they lined up 3 guys across from Mike Evans? What do they?
Yeah. They probably then. I think they probably would have thrown the ball, then just kneel it. Because, like, for me, that's what I would have done. I still would have doubled him. He ain't breaking the record on me.
Because it almost looked like the way that New Orleans played defense, they were fine with it. They almost
they looked like they was playing some type of cover 3 or some type of quarters to where they had.
They might not even had a defensive play call in because they just assumed that they were going to take a knee. That's what I would have thought.
They probably thought that as well.
Panthers and Falcons. Bryce Young goes off in OT to win this game. Atlanta found out that they were out when OT started, but still they got into overtime as a big favorite and lost. This was Young's best statistical game. Are you buying Panthers stock for 2025, Pat?
I am buying the Panther stock, and here's why. Because the way Bryce Young has really played in the last 4 weeks, I'm gonna give you some numbers real quick. In the last 4 weeks, Bryce Young has thrown for 1,320 yards, 10 touchdowns, and only 2 interceptions. Like, that's just, to me, as a young guy playing the way that he played early on in the season and finish the season the way that he did, is unbelievable. Now it's going to be up to the GM, Dan Morgan, to be able to put some pieces around this young fella to really help him flourish. Because, like I said, you can tell that he turned the corner. His confidence level, the swagger level started to change once he's not only started winning ball game, but once he started getting into the flow of ball games week in and week out. Now winning ball games, like, winning is contagious. And once you start winning and understand what it takes to win, it just makes you feel that much better about yourself, and you gain another sense of confidence about yourself as well going into games. So what Bryce Young has really shown me over the last couple of weeks, that he not only that he can play in his league, but he can win in his league against quality opponents and play at a high level if he has some high quality weapons around him to help him really flourish.
Atlanta needed to win today, and he went for 251 and 3 touchdowns with Jalen Coker and Adam Thielen as his receivers and Miles Sanders as his running back. Chuba Hubbard's hurt and didn't play. I mean, that's big-time stuff there. People wrote him off after 28 starts. I was somewhat guilty of that. I liked him going into the year and thought he would have a bounce-back year. Initially, I looked dead wrong. Now I look a little bit more right. But the thing that I think clicked for him, the light bulb went on when he went out for this reason. Their offensive line was very good this year. And last year it wasn't. And I think when he started this year, he was still playing like he was going to get sacked or pressured on every play.
Yeah.
And when he came out of the lineup, I think the game did slow down for him. And he said, wait a minute. I actually have some time, like I'm back at Alabama, to make some plays here. And so his accuracy returned. I agree with you. I think his poise was there. And there are a couple of free agent pickups or trade pickups away offensively from, I think, having a shot to be really good next year. The bar's not very high in this division. You win 10 games, you're right there.
Basically. You win 9, you're in.
Yeah, I think he's got the potential to be a big breakout player in the NFL next year. So I am buying Panther stock right there with you, Pat.
Yeah, I think Bryce Young finally woke up and smelled the coffee. All right, we moving on. We got the cow. Oh, my bad. My screen went up a little bit. All right, we got the Dolphins and the Jets. Rodgers goes out on a high note. Will he retire on his own?
All right, so we got to do 2 things on this game. We got to do Rodgers, and then we got to do Tyreek Hill after that. So let's start with Rodgers.
I'm out, bro.
So let's start with Rodgers. He said after the game that he's going to talk with the Jets tomorrow, that he's going to go home and clear his head. But then he said he's not going to hold anyone up. He's not going to make them wait. And when he said that, Pat, I thought it created I thought he was creating the impression that the Jets might want him back. Like they're waiting on his answer. If they're not interested in him, they don't give a rat's ass what his future plans are. They're just going to tell him straight up, hey, thanks for doing business with us the last 2 years. It's done. We're going to move in a different direction. So at least he's saying, I think he's at least painting the picture that he thinks if he wants to play next year, he can do it in New York. I don't know. I think the way this game ended today makes me think he does still have an itch to play. He threw his 500 touchdown pass. He just looked when he was moving around out there like he still thinks he's got it. I think someone who's very close to him, I don't think any of these people exist, but I think if there was someone really close to him, I'm serious. I think if one of those people did exist or could maybe it's like some voodoo doctor out there or something, witch doctor, they should just say to him, look, man, your last memory on a football field is a good one. Leave it at that. You threw your 500 touchdown pass. You won. Just move on. But I don't think it's going to be that cut and dried with him, Pat.
Nah, it's going to be some type of long, drawn-out drama around it. I guarantee it for sure. I don't think he will retire. I think he will play one more year because he has one more year under contract with the Jets, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he'll be back.
He can get out of that fairly easily. It's not like a –
yeah, so and I don't see who else will honestly pick him up to be their quarterback. I know he's Aaron Rodgers, but next year's possibly will be his last season, under the center, so I do see him being back with the Jets next year. And for the most part, he still can throw the ball. Like he still has the accuracy, he still has the arm power. He just had to get all the other stuff out of the way and like really just focus on the game and focus on uplifting his teammates to get the best out, not only himself, but the best out of those guys as well. Because like I've been saying all along, man, especially these young guys, man, they look forward to coming to a happy, uplifting Aaron Rodgers versus a grumpy, grinchy type
Garrett
attitude.
Wilson is going to pull what Tyreek Hill did if Aaron Rodgers is back, because he's already pretty much said, he's already put out hints that if Aaron Rodgers is there, he don't want to be a Jet anymore. Like that relationship, I think.
Who said that?
Garrett Wilson.
Oh, wow. See? That's what I'm saying.
Now, how about Tyreek Hill?
I'm out, bro. Man, I'm used to being to the playoffs, man. I'm competitive, bro. I got to make sure I'm looking out for my family and my career. I'm out, bro. I love it. I mean, quite honestly, man, the Miami Dolphins wasn't going to ever be nothing anyway, to be quite honest with you, because they played in a division with the Buffalo Bills, and quite frankly, they will have to win at least 10 games, a year to qualify or
to get to the cold weather thing that you're going to bring up that they're not going to win.
You already know. Already know, Pony, because you got to at least win 10 games, and at least 3 games out of the season going to be in the cold weather. And we already know what their record is in the cold weather. They got lucky last week and won in Cleveland with their backup and, their 4th and 5th string guys in. But they came back to the to reality in MetLife against the Jets, and they lost a ball game, another cold weather ball game. So that's my thing with the Miami Dolphins. Man, I just think
it's a bad, in my opinion, it's a bad look for Mike McDaniel. Like, you're supposed to be this offensive geek, and you've paid Tua. And Tyreek Hill should understand that Tua was out for most of this year, and that if everybody's healthy, he can put up numbers again. But clearly, he doesn't feel that way.
Man, what I told you, man, it's just so ironic when people give these offensive gurus and offensive, titles out to everyone. He had a nice season his first year. But he's still having to adapt to the league. He's running the same stuff he's been running since he got in the league. Tyreek Hill, if he's coming on a jet motion, he's either running a post or a stop, or what else he like to run, or one of those deep end routes. Like, he's running the same thing since he became the OC at the Miami Dolphins. I see no trickery. I see nothing being changed up. The running game is simple. Like, he's supposed to be this offensive guru and this run mad scientist guy, but the running game still is not efficient. Like, I don't understand when people always give out these titles as far as offensive gurus, because he's not one of them. He called good plays and he had a good scheme, but now that guys have caught on to his scheme, it's just another scheme in the NFL. Because, like, again, what has he done differently since he got into the NFL play calling wise? I'll wait.
Nothing.
My point exactly.
Commanders, Cowboys. Washington comes back to win. It clinches the 6th seed. Were they smart to avoid the Eagles in the wild card round?
No doubt about it. No doubt about it, because, because who they're going to play? They're going to play
Tampa now.
Yeah, they're going to play Tampa now. Quite honestly, Tampa is the only team I see them that they can beat in the playoffs in the NFC. So they lucked out very well in this game. I feel like Tampa and Washington are evenly matched. You can win with both quarterbacks. Both quarterbacks are about what and what. As far as stats, I know Baker may have the experience and the playoff experience, and also game time experience. But for the most part, both of those guys have had outstanding seasons this year. The receivers are what and what. The defense is what and what. So this is basically about as even of a playoff game is that you're going to get. So, and I think this gave them the best opportunity to win a playoff game, because I don't see them beating the Rams. I don't see them beating the Minnesota Vikings. I don't see them beating Philly. And who else is in the playoffs? I know I'm missing one. I know Detroit, but they wouldn't have saw them anyway because they're on the bye. Who was the
Their options were they were either going to play Philly,
we said
Tampa, or LA.
Yeah, so I don't see them beating Tampa. I don't see them beating Philly, and I don't see them beating the Rams. So this was the best opportunity for them to try to get a win by matching up with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But
Washington got killed by them, but it was very early in the season. So much has changed since the first couple of weeks in September. The last time Tampa Bay's defense saw like what I would describe as a mobile quarterback, and this is obviously the best ever, but they saw Lamar Jackson not too long ago, and they gave up 41 points. So Todd Bowles obviously has a very high defensive acumen, but his defense has not played to that level in the second half of the season. Antoine Winfield's had a quieter year as far as big plays go. You've obviously still got Levante David there doing his thing in his early 30s or mid 30s, still a big time player. But they had to bring guys like Shaq Barrett back because their pass rush isn't what they wanted it to be this year. So, yeah, I think it's a great spot. The other thing, too, is like, sorry, Tampa, but it's just not an intimidating place to play. They've beaten Philly this year, but it was at home. They go to Philly, and there's kids MFing you the second you get off the bus.
Right.
They go to Tampa Bay, it's going to probably be in the 70s, and there might be more Washington fans there than Tampa fans. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a great situation. I thought they were one of the big winners today in everything that happened, Pat.
Yeah, I agree. I think they were big winners as well, as far as the seeding of the playoffs for themselves. All right, we got the Chargers and the Raiders. LA moved down to the 5th seed to face the Texans. Perfect situation.
Same thing as Washington. They're the AFC version of this. Mm-hmm. So with the Steelers' loss on Saturday, all the Chargers needed to do was beat the Raiders to face Houston, and they took care of business. They struggled in the first quarter and a half, and then Justin Herbert turned it on, ended up throwing for 346 today, played a great game. Mm-hmm. He hasn't thrown an interception in 8 straight games, by the way, so he's limited mistakes there. Houston is in the playoffs and hosting a playoff game, Pat, because they went 5-1 against AFC South teams. If they were in any other division, they wouldn't have made the playoffs. They would have been one of the biggest underachievers in the NFL this year. Yeah. So they get Houston. Not only that, but they avoid Baltimore. That's where they would have gone had the Steelers won. And that means traveling west to east, playing in cold weather. Saturday night in Baltimore, there's supposed to be like 5 to 9 inches of snow. So you don't want as an LA team to have to go play in that. I know they're a Harbaugh team, so they want to be tough. But that's just really still not that's just not how I think of the Chargers. So it's a huge break for them. What it does, though, and we'll get into this on Thursday, is it just puts more pressure on Herbert to finally kick down that door and win a playoff game, because there's no excuse. They're the one road team, Pat, that's, according to the odds makers, favored to win in the first round. They're a favorite against Houston, and they should be with how they've played lately.
No doubt about it. They should be 100% just because of the big letdown that the Houston Texans have been all year, especially on the offensive side of the ball, offensive line, especially not being able to protect.
And now here comes Mack and Bosa and Bud Dupree.
And the lowest scoring defense in all of football. So it's going to be a task for the Houston Texans offense to move the ball up and down the football field. So I think this is an opportunity for Justin Herbert to kick down the door to get his first playoff win. I'm not saying that he's going to get it, but this is a great opportunity for him to get it. And with him having playoff experienced coaches, like guys who actually been there, done that, with Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh. So I think this is a great situation for Justin to finally kick that door down, and a great situation for the Chargers to hopefully gain some momentum and capture some momentum moving forward.
You brought this up. I actually think the other thing that works in their favor here is if they win, they'll play. You'd think they'll play the Chiefs, because if the Bills and Ravens both win, they'll play each other, and then LA would go to Kansas City. And that's all that rust for Kansas City. And I don't think the Chargers are intimidated by playing the Chiefs.
No, they see them twice a year.
And they played them close.
Yeah.
They should have won the second game, as a matter of fact.
Mm-hmm.
So it's tough to beat a team 3 times in one season. I'll leave it there with them. Let's do Giants and Eagles. Philly won. They didn't play Saquon. Will it be easy to put that behind them now? Is that chapter closed? Is that something that now everyone's over as they go into the playoffs, in your opinion?
I think everyone is over it right now. Saquon will not be over it at the end of the season, just because how close he was. And they better win the championship, because that's going to be something that makes this a little bit easier. Because I would have at least played him the first half, just to see how close he could have got to the record, to be able to etch his name in stone in the record books as the head honcho, possibly as an NFL leading rusher. Man, that's just something that's something that's very hard to accomplish. A lot of guys have, attempted, and came close to it. I know it's a huge accomplishment by being the 9th player to rush for 2,000 yards, but it's only one guy that has 2,100 plus yards, and he could have been, the second guy, possibly the only guy with, I can't remember the exact number, but he could have broke the record and been the only guy sitting on top of the mountain. So I think after the season, it will hunt Saquon, especially if they don't win a championship. But I do think it's a huge accomplishment for the offensive linemen, because I don't think the Philadelphia Eagles ever had a 2,000-yard rusher in their franchise. So I think that was an accomplishment for them. But I just wanted to see Saquon at least play a half. I know they got bigger fish to fry. The Super Bowl is not guaranteed. As far as even him being healthy in the playoff is not even guaranteed. Let me knock on wood, because I want to see him stay healthy, but a lot of things are not guaranteed. And when you have an opportunity right there in front of you, like, you gotta be able to seize those moments. And man, I just hated to see that he didn't even get an opportunity to suit up and attempt to break the record.
At least Nick Sirianni was true to his word. I mean, he didn't play anybody today.
He didn't.
Looked at the starting lineup. There were no starting offensive linemen in there. There were no starting receivers. There were no starting defensive players. So it's not like he handpicked 3 or 4 guys and played everybody else. So
Yep.
Saquon can't do what about this guy? You played him and he didn't play me.
Right.
So in that way, at least he was consistent as a coach. Do you agree with what Eric Dickerson said? Eric Dickerson came out, and some people gave him shit. He said, look, it's my record. I don't want my record to be broken. I respect Saquon. I wish him well. But people that say that I should want him to break my record don't have any records. He's right.
Hey, he's dead right, man. That's how old timers are, man. They want to hold on.
I don't think that's salty. Like, I don't think
I
that's
don't think that's salty
mentality. I agree with him on that. I wouldn't want my record broken.
Yeah, I mean, records are meant to be broken, but at the same time, if it's your record, you don't want it to be broken. Yeah, that's just the reality, especially if you're a competitor and obviously how what it takes to go into, capturing that record. Like you want that to last forever. Like you want to be the only one to have that title. And that's just a reality of a competitor and a professional athlete.
Yeah.
Seahawks Rams, LA rest guys and lost out on the 3 seed. Bad move?
I think so. They went into full tank mode today, and we just went over why it was so beneficial for Washington to be 6 instead of 7, play Tampa, avoid Philly. What LA did by punting on this game was they went from 3, so they would have hosted Washington. And instead, now they've put themselves in a spot, Pat, where they've got to beat Minnesota and Detroit in back-to-back weeks to get to the NFC Championship game. Teams that are combined 29-5. I'd rather play Washington, period.
Me too.
I mean, like McVay does this in the preseason, and that's a totally different story, but still, he's like big on resting guys. He'd rather guys get the time off. And not everybody plays for seed, especially when we're not talking about a bye. We're just talking about where you're sorted out, where you're ranked. But man, he really just said the hell with it. I don't care who we're playing or where we're playing them. Maybe that message, like that's a resounding one, and guys appreciate that in the locker room. Mm-hmm. But the other thing he could have said is we don't take weeks off and we're going to go out and beat a good Seattle team to get ourselves ready for the playoffs. He could have played that card too, and he decided not to.
Yeah, but I kind of get where Sean was coming from in this game, especially the injuries that they had to endure on the offensive side of the ball, throughout the season.
That's true, and that's a good rebuttal, man.
Yeah, so they finally end up getting guys healthy, and they finally got caught sync and end up winning games to help them prevail to finally get into the playoff hunt. And now they end up capturing the NFC.
You think they'll just steal Detroit's game plan against Minnesota and do the same exact thing defensively against them?
100%. It's a copycat league. So I won't say they're going to copy their entire game plan, but I'll be lying if I told you that it won't be some wrinkles in that game that we saw tonight that the Rams going to throw at Minnesota to see if they corrected it, but because that's just how the league go. Like we all watch film, we all watch each other games and watch each other weaknesses, and we're going to try to attack those weaknesses to see if you worked on those weaknesses throughout the week of practice. So that's going to my point again. What I was saying early on in the show is that's going to be Kevin O'Connell's opportunity. Is we know they like to operate on the play action, those deep shots down the field. Now he's probably going to have to rely more on, especially early in the early part of the game, is get Sam in a rhythm. Like get him some early, 3-step reads, getting the ball out of his hand quick, some spacing routes, some different high lows and things like that. Versus coming out trying to, gun blazing to the walls, to where now teams are just gonna, because you don't have the best offensive line in the game. The guys are just good enough to hold up to give Sam a good enough time to get the ball down the field. But now guys see that, give him some exotic looks, put some games on the offensive linemen to confuse those guys a little bit. To confuse those guys a little bit, it's going to wreak havoc, and like I said, this is a copycat league, and I'll be lying to you if I said that the Rams would not be pulling something out of Detroit game plan that they showed here tonight. Is it on me?
Yep. Oh, wait, no, it's not me. My bad. Bills Patriots, Pat. New England fired Jerod Mayo after just one season. What's your reaction to him winning this game today and then getting the pink slip right afterwards?
Man, it sucked, but I'm not surprised, with the aura and the reputation that the New England Patriots have carried over so many years. Like, this is a organization that is not used to winning 5 games or 4 games. I believe they won this season. It was a complete embarrassment to them, so I kind of saw this coming, especially when I started hearing the rumbles of Mike Vrabel will have interest in coming back. When I saw that, I was like, I know Mr. Kraft came out and said that, Jerod Mayo will be back next year. I said, don't look like it now. You know what I mean? So in my opinion, I can see Mike Vrabel being the next head coach. I won't be surprised if they name him the next head coach within the next 3 weeks. But I'm not surprised as well that Jerod got the pink slip, because you just saw no progression throughout the season. And they want to be able to help, guys right now, especially owners, they want to be able to have somebody in place that's going to help their young quarterback, their franchise quarterback flourish, especially if they don't have a veteran quarterback. You know what I mean? So they're trying to match these young guys up with someone that fits their athletic ability, the way they like to throw the football, and things like that, because that's going to set them up for success. Like, we just can't continue just hiring a defensive-minded guy who really won't go out and spend the time to put the offensive guy in place to help the young quarterback flourish. You know what I mean? So if you go back and look at any defensive-minded head coach, they always, I don't know what it is, they always have a hard time hiring an offensive coordinator. I don't know what it is, but I think that is going to be something moving forward with these quarterbacks that these teams are drafting. They're gonna want to have offensive coordinators or a head coach that's going to be in place to help their young quarterback flourish, because they don't want their, if they're going out and drafting these guys in the first round, they just don't want these guys to be around for 2 or 3 years. We all know how valuable quarterbacks and how hard it is to find a quarterback. So they expect those guys to be around 10 plus years. You know what I mean? So that's what these owners are starting to figure out. They're going to go out and get offensive coordinators and head coaches that better match with their quarterback to help them have better success moving forward.
Well, that's why I think if they're firing Jerod Mayo for Ben Johnson, it makes sense. If they're firing him for Mike Vrabel, it makes less sense to me. I mean, I still get it. Vrabel has had success in this league. He went to the AFC Championship game in Tennessee with Ryan Tannehill as his quarterback, and they had the best record in the AFC one year with Tannehill as his quarterback. But he's not an offensive guy. He played linebacker in the NFL, for crying out loud. So he's going to be in the same situation where if he has an offensive coordinator that has success, he's probably going to lose him to another head coaching job somewhere else. I still think Mayo got a raw deal. I mean, we talked about before the season started, the two of us, that Drake May probably shouldn't play there this year because of how bad the team was. And they were putting the quarterback in a position to fail by putting him out there when their more offensive line starting combinations than any team in the league. No weapons to speak of in their passing game. Kendrick Bourne, Demario Douglas were their top two receivers. Hunter Henry was probably their most reliable target. I mean, that's not putting a quarterback in position to succeed. And that's not putting a head coach in a position to succeed. Their defense got worse this year. It went from 15th to 25th. They won the same amount of games this year as they did with Belichick last year. So I just don't know what the Crafts expected out of Jerod Mayo this year. To win 10 games with that roster and that division, with Jacoby Brissett as your starting quarterback at the beginning of the year, I thought it was a transitional year. So that's what I'm confused about. If you liked Jerod Mayo before the season started, you had to anticipate that growing pains were going to happen. And this was going to be a tough year. And you saw Drake May make progress. So if you get Ben Johnson or Vrabel, I'm going to say at the end of the day, it sucks for Jerod Mayo, but it was worth it. But if you don't get one of those two guys, I think the dude totally got the shaft there. I mean, you played for Steve Wilkes in Arizona. I think he got totally fucked. I mean, he got 1 year, and it was your quarterback situation was horrible that season.
Yeah.
So I just feel bad for coaches like that, man. They get their one crack at it, and this is how they get traded by their owner. Kraft's not used to winning, but I think they set the bar too high where they fire a guy after winning only 4 games this year with a backup quarterback as his guy to begin the season.
All right, Bears-Packers. Chicago in an 11-game losing streak to the Green Bay Packers. Something to build on?
Not really.
Yeah,
no.
I agree.
You beat them today with Jordan Love coming out of that game with an injury. Christian Watson got hurt. Josh Jacobs only touched the ball 6 times. The Packers tanked it. I mean, it's one of those situations where it was a lose-lose. If you beat Green Bay, I'm going to say, well, look at all the guys that were out of the lineup. If you lose to Green Bay, I would have said, oh my God, what an embarrassing end to the season for the Bears. So I probably was not going to say anything positive about them unless Caleb Williams played a monster game today, which he didn't. He threw for 148 yards. The best I can say about him is that he just did not really screw it up. They are going to be a very interesting team this offseason because not only do they have to get their own house in order, but you look around that division and you're like, oh, crap. The other three teams are really, really good. And the NFL can change and turn on a dime, but there's a lot of jobs out there. Just the division they're in makes it a tough gig, and you just got to love Caleb Williams. And I'm not sure every coach is going to say they love him, even though he was the number one pick in the draft, Pat.
Yeah, I don't think it's anything to build on just because, like you said, that the division that they're in is brutal. You got the Green Bay Packers, you got, the number one seed right now in the NFC and in the Detroit Lions. Hell, all three teams that's ahead of you are in the playoffs right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's going to be an uphill climb, 6 games in your own division. You know what I mean? The best play in that game was DJ Moore up the sideline, that screen, man. The way he was able to slither in and out of that traffic and get up the sideline and just hit another speed.
Yeah,
that was quite interesting to see a receiver move the way he did, moving the way he did, looking like a running back in open field. So that was quite impressive to show off the movement and the speed after having the ball in his hands. But I don't really think there's nothing to really build off of here because you still don't have a head coach, you still don't have an OC. There's so much right now still up in the air. You know what I mean? You got Caleb saying that he want to be coach harder, so we don't know if you're going to hire the coach that's going to be able to do that. You know what I mean? And again, you got 3 teams in your division that's in the playoffs right now that's astronomically better than you. You know what I mean? So you got a lot of work to do in your own house before you start thinking about, that you're ready to compete with the other 3 teams within your division.
Texans and Titans, because the Patriots won, Tennessee clinched the number 1 pick in the 2025 draft. Who should they take with that pick, Pat?
Shador, Cam Ward, one of the 2. Will Levis ain't it.
No. He
definitely and if they are gonna give Will Levis another opportunity, I'm going Travis Hunter. You got to get the best player in the draft. You know what I mean? Something that's going to get your fan base excited. You just can't go out and get offensive linemen. You got to go get somebody that dynamic that you feel that can really, not only put the fans in the seats, but really make your offense. If Travis goes into the draft, I don't know if he declared what he's going into the draft as just yet. But if you can get a receiver or a guy as dynamic that as Travis is, I feel like you go get one of those guys because I don't know what their cap number is heading into the offseason, but I feel like you can find solid offensive linemen and running back play throughout free agency and maybe a solid number 2 or number 3 that could possibly be a number 2 receiver. You know what I mean? So I think if you really going to continue to put the trust in Will Levis, I think you go out and get Travis Hunter.
I think you got to take a swing at quarterback here. I know they did it 10 years ago with Mariota, and it didn't work when they were last picking this high. And, they ended up picking up Tannehill off the scrap heap with Vrabel, like we talked about, and that's how they went on a run. But that was mostly because Derrick Henry was one of the best players in the NFL during that stretch of time. I'm open to Sanders. I know people think that, it's a lightning rod situation because of his dad, and he's going to bring a lot of maybe undue attention to the teams he plays on, and he might create division on his team because he's such a big personality. It ain't like Johnny Manziel, though, where the guy got drafted just because of his brand or whatever in the first round, or Tim Tebow. I think the dude can legitimately play quarterback in a traditional sense. He's not just a runner. He's not just a guy that gets by, with a big arm like Jamarcus Russell back in the day or Ryan Leaf. Like, the guy makes plays from the pocket on schedule and delivers the ball accurately and on time. And I think there's always going to be a home in the NFL for a quarterback like that. Like, I don't know if he'll ever be a great quarterback, Pat, but I would be surprised if he's a bust. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I'd be surprised too. I don't see him being a bust at all. I just don't have the makeup just because of what he was thrust into at the college level and how he was still able to succeed. I don't feel like that got to his head. I feel like the dad that he has really can prepare him for these moments, and I feel like he has. So I don't think no moment is too big for him. I don't think no situation is too big. I don't think no lights are too bright for Shedeur. So whoever picks him, they're getting a kid that's already well adapted to all of this.
He reminds me of, people have laughed at this when I've said this because they're like, he looks nothing like the guy, but just the way that they play, I think, is very similar. He reminds me of Matt Ryan.
Matty Ice.
Not late. I mean, when he was in his prime, good pocket sense, never had the biggest arm. But the ball was on time. It was to the right places. Like, he didn't have a weak arm or anything like that.
Right.
He just, he did not really have like any trait that I would say was elite, but he maybe had like 3 or 4 that were all good to very good. And I think that that's where Sanders is as an NFL quarterback. So,
yeah, I think he'll have a solid career, man. All right, we got the Coach Jags. Reports that Doug Peterson is getting fired. Is this a good job?
You're in the right division, and your quarterback's making a ton of money, which looks like it's a bad contract. But I do think that an offensive coach would look at it and say, let me get in the lab with him and fix this guy because there's raw material there to make him better. So is this a good job? I would say no, it's not, but I don't think it's I don't think it's a hellaciously bad. Like, I don't think it's a horrible job. Like, the Browns and Jets, I think of as bad jobs. Yeah. I don't think Raiders historically. I don't think the Raiders is a bad job right now. But I think that it's an average job that you can squint at and see some positives in. And it's that you might have a quarterback that's worth saving, I guess, Pat. Yeah. And the division isn't very hard.
Yeah, the division is not very hard. The expectations is not very high. So if you can get an offensive coordinator that can really go in there and go in the lab and and really fix Trevor Lawrence, I think you can find yourself a home. Because like I said, you're only going to be competing. The toughest team in your division as of right now is the Colts, and you have just as much. I won't say just as much talent, but you have enough talent to compete with the Texans. You know what I mean? So
let me ask you this question: if Mike McCarthy isn't back in Dallas, and
yes,
his two were the Saints or Jaguars, if you're Mike, which one would you take? Me too.
Jaguars all day. Jaguars all day, just because I feel like they have a better core that will be returned on the defensive side of the ball, and they have a quarterback who I feel that can win in this league. He has all the physical attributes.
And Brian Thomas is a stud.
Exactly, and they have weapons on the opposite side of the ball. And what's the running back name from Clemson?
Travis Etienne.
Yeah, Etienne. I don't know what his contract situation is, but he's a solid back as well. If you can get an offensive coordinator that can really unlock him as well, because he has put on some weight ever since he got into the league, but he's very dynamic catching the ball out of the backfield. So, when you have guys like that, you want to be able to unlock all of those attributes. And man, I feel like Doug Peterson was not able to do that, in the 2 years that he was there. 2 years, right?
This is third year.
Third. So the 3 years that he's been there, I feel like he haven't really been able to not only unlock Trevor Lawrence, but all of the weapons that he was being provided with.
Yeah, defense definitely hit rock bottom this year. 49ers, Cardinals. Which team has a bigger quarterback conundrum this offseason, Pat?
You got to go. Oh man, I mean they both they both in some weird spots just because Kyler Murray still not when I he had a phenomenal game today, but hell, it didn't mean nothing. I hate to
He's
see
great in
that.
those games.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. I was like, God damn, I would have loved to see this, 2-3 weeks ago. That's why I'm wearing my giving my Arizona Cardinals some love today. But I would have loved to saw that, 2-3 weeks ago on a consistent basis. So, they can be, hopefully, watching the rest of the guys, lose and give them some hopes to get into the playoff. But that wasn't the case. But I'm gonna have to go with the 49ers just because they're not necessarily they're not in a position to where they have to pay Brock Purdy, but for the most part, he's looking for a contract. Arizona already have their quarterback pretty much locked up, and they're not cutting him. Like he's going to be their quarterback next year. So the big question is, what is San Francisco going to do with Brock Purdy? Are they going to franchise him, or do they trust him or like him enough to give him a 3-4 year lucrative deal, whatever the case may be? I really believe that the 49ers, I wouldn't either, but I feel like the 49ers have the biggest conundrum just because of the dollar amount that's going to happen.
I would make him play out the contract. I'd have him play one more year and then make up your mind after that. See where this next year goes. And if it costs you more money in the long run, so be it. I mean, it ain't like you're waiting on Jamar Chase and the guy's going to go for 1,300 yards and 10 touchdowns, and you're just being stubborn about it. You legitimately don't know with Brock Purdy.
And I'm thinking of this too. He get all his weapons back. We all know what he can do when all of his weapons are back. So let's see if he can do it again. I'm with you. I won't give him nothing. I want to see him. He's gonna have to play again. Let me go get some other weapons to surround his team, be better equipped, so we can play better, meaningful football down the stretch.
I think Arizona's got to shop Kyler and just see what people will offer them. His dead cap money is only $20 million. So if they trade him, it's really not that.
Yeah, that's not a hit at all. But who would they get though?
Well, that's what I'm asking. His base salary. Well, what I'm saying is his base salary is around $37 million, which again is not, I think, prohibitive for a team. Mm-hmm. Could you get a first round pick for him?
No.
I mean, well, not. Yeah,
no,
you probably.
You get a second? You get a second. You're not getting a first round draft pick for Kyler Murray. You're not.
So if you're getting a second round pick, then you're still you got to find a quarterback because you're not going to be able to draft one if you're them.
Exactly.
Basically.
So the Arizona Cardinals are stuck with Kyler Murray because I've been in that organization. They don't cut their franchise players. He's either going to play that contract out and then he'll just hit the market then, but they're not cutting him. Like he'll be their quarterback.
Oh, I don't think they'll cut him. I'm saying
or trade him. They're not cutting him or trading him. Watch. What he got? 3 more years on the contract?
Yeah.
He's gonna play those years out. If
guess what? If on January 6th, 2026, we're going to be having the same exact conversation about them. They're going to go 8-9 or 9-8, and we're going to say, "Damn, I wish."
And they're gonna be perfectly fine with
that. Last but not least, here the Saturday games: Ravens, Browns, Steelers, Bengals. Anything on those two matchups before we say goodbye, Pat?
Man, the Ravens, Browns. I knew the Ravens were going to just completely dominate that football game. So, I mean, that game went as expected. Pittsburgh and Cincinnati game, that game did not go did not go the way I expected it to go. I thought being on a 3-game losing streak, the offense would come out with a little bit better spunk, with a little bit more how I want to say it. It would have came out with a little bit more organization. It just seemed like they were just out of sync for the entire first half. Russell had 53 yards going into the fourth quarter. He was like 6 of 15 or something crazy like that.
George had 414 yards against them the first time they played.
Right. then George Pickens, he seemed to can't catch the ball that comes his way. He does a better job whining and complaining at his teammates and the referee versus catching the actual pigskin.
And apparently trying to beg fans to come onto the sideline and fight him
Yeah,
too.
I saw that too. I saw that
Finally
just completely distracted and not into the game, and it's starting to show on the football field. And then again, defense, they did what they held on as long as they could. You know what I mean? They held on as long as they
before
could.
the game they were going to hold Joe Burrow to 19 points. I would have signed in blood for that.
That's what I'm saying. The defense did as long as they could, and I was expecting so much more out of the offense. Like I said, coming out of that 3-game losing streak, thought that Arthur and the offense would come out with a little bit more jazz, a little bit more energy. It just came out just flat, man, and it showed throughout that game. And just that 2-minute drive, that was so dreadful to watch. Just every second of it, far as Russell not throwing the ball away, not getting out of bounds, George not catching the ball.
The way the drive started,
not using a timeout.
He caught the ball for a 1-yard loss, and it took 20 seconds off the clock. Then the next play was a 2-yard pass that couldn't get out of bounds.
Yeah, that was a debacle in itself. So I hate to see the Steelers going to the playoff on this note, but they got to get it turned around here very quickly, because now they're going up against their divisional foe in Baltimore Ravens, a team who actually was in the midst of that 3-game losing streak, back in their house. I don't know if it's a night game or not, but they're going back in their house. I know they have they're very familiar with the Baltimore Ravens, but if that offense is going to continue to play like they have been playing in the last month of the season, they might as well stay home, because that's where they're going to be after the game.
Pat, I feel like they're not even back to square one, because at least with you guys last year, Rudolph got a little bit hot and was playing well when you went into the playoffs. And who knew about him? I didn't know about him long term, but at least the guy was giving you guys a spark. I think they're right back to the quarterback drawing board here. They can't give Russell Wilson $30 to $40 million a year right now. 36 years old. We've seen what's happened to Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers. You can't commit to that guy unless he's willing to take a massive hometown discount, which would allow you to get better players around him. But I don't see him doing that after he played here for only $1 million this year and let Denver pay basically his entire salary. And even if he did want to come back for cheaper, what am I doing? I'm setting myself up to go 9-8, 10-7 again and lose in the first round of the playoffs. They've been doing that
for the last 7 years, right?
Yeah, you said that's cool for the Arizona Cardinals. It's not cool for a team that when you walk in the building, there's 6 Lombardi trophies.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you this question. Would you start Justin Fields on Saturday?
No.
Would you play him at all?
It depends on how the game's going. I just think right now
against the Bengals.
I know, huh?
He got 0 snaps against Cincy.
Yeah, I know. But at this stage, Russell has been in the game for 11 games, man. It's too late to turn back now, in my opinion.
All things being equal, though, who do you feel gives them a better chance to win?
Right now, Russell, because he's been in these moments before. I know he's not playing the best ball within in the last month of the season, but we all know he's been in the playoffs before. He knows what it's going to take to win these playoff games. And hell, I trust him way more than I trust Justin Fields in this position.
I think he knows what it takes to win these games. I think Aaron Rodgers knows what it takes to win these games, but that don't mean they can do it anymore. I think Terry
at the same time too, Justin Fields, he just give you the athletic ability. Justin Fields don't give you the downfield threat. Because we all know he's not going to throw the ball down the field. Better yet, complete the ball down the field. And we all know if a quarterback don't strike at least that fear into a defense, hell, man, we ain't scared of nothing.
Yeah. Well, when you got your number one wide receiver who'd rather start fights with fans, I don't know how many moon balls are going to hit.
Right.
Baltimore, how much better they've played defensively the last couple of games. All right, Pat. Thanks to everybody for listening again. Subscribe, rate, review it, get on board here. Yes, you're pointing something out. What do you got?
Hey, man, we got to say happy birthday to Spence, man. We didn't have our producer here tonight, but happy birthday to Spence, man.
I came in and worked on my birthday, and I think Spence just got drunk instead, which I'm cool with.
Spence went to a pub and got him a nice, what'd you call that?
Guinness?
No, he went and got him a Guinness. I'm trying to think of the sandwich that they like in Pittsburgh, man.
Permanis.
With all that. What is it?
Permanis?
Yeah, Permanis. There you go.
Spence
with all that damn roast beef and ham and
yeah.
turkey and roasted onions and all that crap on it.
He's the guy that would eat or that would drink beer and not do wine or
who, me?
No, Spence. No, you definitely.
Spence.
Yeah.
Spence is a beer guy all day.
Yeah.
100%.
We'll be back on Thursday. We will not only preview the wild card games, but we'll probably react to the Orange Bowl that night too. Penn State will play Notre Dame, and we'll come on.
Big game. Big game.
All right. Subscribe, rate, review. It's First and Pod.